Welcome to this special episode of Map to the Future. Today we are assessing the pandemic of fatherlessness, and a subject that I've been thinking about for quite some time and pondering for quite some time. And really what it comes down to is this. Fatherlessness is a problem in society. I don't think anybody who's paying any real attention can argue that point. But it goes deeper than just a lack of fathers in the home. What I believe and what I have seen is that fatherlessness extends to society and civilization as a whole. And especially Western civilization and Western society, which has degraded at a ever increasing rate throughout the entirety of my lifetime and prior to that too. And my belief is that this is due to the loss of religion, because God, as religion teaches, is the Father. And so I posit that fatherlessness and the fatherless is all of us. The loss of fathers in the home is an extension of the loss of the father in society, within our culture. And what I want to talk to you about today is how I feel that is impacting the world, how I feel that is continuing to degrade our culture and our society, how it poses a threat to everything that we as a group, as a society, as a civilization hold dear, and where it comes from, because that is very important. So let me start with just my view on it. I was born in the 1980s. I don't really remember the 80s. I was only 5 when they were finished. My primary decade in which I was raised and remember are the 90s. And it was noticeable to me then how many of my friends went through divorces, how many of my friends had their parents break up. And I remember my parents always discussing it and seeming surprised by it, seeming like this isn't normal. It's not normal for this many people to break up. And I remember them discussing it around the dinner table. I remember them talking about how rare it was. And I remember my grandparents, who were both born in the 1930s, who actually I believe my grandfather was born in the 1920s, and how they viewed it and how they saw this dramatic difference, and how much of an impact they had on those children. It was so noticeable to me that the kids whose parents got divorced were generally worse behaved. They were generally doing worse in school. They were generally the kids that you weren't having the best relationships with, one way or the other. They tended to be the attention seekers, or the kids who had problems or whatever. However, it was attributed back then, in the 90s and so on. The the real push was to tar everyone with the brush of dyslexia. That was the thing that everybody had. Everyone was dyslexic, and then they moved on from that into the 2000s into ADHD, and then that became whatever the hell it is now. Usually just excuses for bad parenting, but the fact remains that I started to almost select friends based on whose parents weren't divorced, because the people whose parents weren't divorced were generally better friends. They were generally better people. And I don't necessarily think that was any fault of their own. I think it was simply an extension of what was going wrong in their homes. They were in a situation where a family was being torn apart. And for a young child especially, that is traumatic in a way that is difficult for adults to really understand. But as a child, you're seeing your family fall apart, and you're so unaware of the reality of the world that you can't help but think it's your fault, or that you're somehow to blame in that situation. Your parents don't love each other anymore. Your parents are arguing with each other all the time. But they both seem to love you, but they can't get on with each other. You're a part of both of them. You love them both. They're both your mum and your dad, and you want them to love you. And the fracturing of that family unit, I think, has a profound impact on children. I don't think that is a particularly controversial or difficult fact to prove. But I think the problem is worsened by the acceptance of it. Problems always get worse when they're accepted, and they're usually forced into acceptance by the people who perpetrate them. So the people doing the thing are usually the people pushing to have them accepted. The people who are guilty of the unacceptable behavior push for society to see them as the victim, so that society has to change how it views the unacceptable behavior. See LGBTQ or whatever the hell it is these days, and see all of the transgenderism and the mutilation of children and all of these things for reference. These are barbaric, heinous acts. Abortion is another one, a barbaric and heinous act. And if you are one of these people that has never really thought much about abortion, and never really thought, oh, well, it's not that bad, I defy you to look into it. Go watch just one video of an abortion taking place, especially when the baby is past the 12-week mark, because it is horrendous. And it is perhaps one of the most despicable things you will ever see in your life, and you cannot unsee it. Once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. That problem has been exacerbated through fatherlessness as well. The lack of fathers increases the rates of abortion. It directly impacts and influences the regularity that abortion is taken. Now, I'm not one of these people that's going to turn around and blame women for it. Feminism is absolutely 100% culpable and is a large factor in the problem. And the way that feminism has poisoned society has absolutely led to this. And yes, that was begun by insufferable women. But men aren't completely blameless in this. And too many of them have allowed themselves to accept it, to support it even, because it is an act, it is a cruel thing to do. And believe it or not, despite what you may have been told, and again what you may have been taught and what you may have been led to believe, the cruelest people are generally not men. Now, men are capable of committing heinous and terrible acts, but some of the most vindictive, evil, twisted people with the least amount of remorse for the evil and terrible things they do are often women. And you've probably met them. You've met very few men who have done terrible things and shown no remorse for it. Whereas you'll probably meet all the time women who have done pretty terrible things and have no remorse whatsoever. No sense of accountability, no sense of moral judgment, no sense of guilt. It is noticeable. And again, this leads us back to the problem of fatherlessness. Men who are raised in single parent homes and are generally raised by their mothers are hugely worse off. And I'm going to give you a few stats here. So in 2023, nearly 1 in 4 children in the US, that's about 19 million, lived in a household without their biological step or adoptive father in the home. And the share of children living with a single parent almost tripled between 1960 and 2023. Therefore, they then become the worst people. Of the children who are fatherless, around 85% of the youths in prison come from single parent mother homes. About 71% of high school dropouts come from single mother homes. Roughly 90% of homeless and runaways come from single mother homes. Around 60% of youth suicides come from single mother homes. These numbers are not minor, and they are too stark and too large to be ignored. And no, correlation is not causation, but there are plenty of other statistics and information that goes along with these that proves that it almost entirely comes down to those things. Because what tends to happen is young men who grow up in a home without a father outsource their father. They look for father figures in other places, and they look for things they don't get in the home. They look for strength, they look for authority, they look for action, they look for excitement. A very large proportion of them find it in gangs, and therefore they commit crimes, they get killed, they commit murders, they commit rapes, they commit arsons. They are far more likely to go down that route without having a stable father in the home. And the same is true for women. Women have a very similar problem. Men have the problems of crime. Women who grow up in single parent homes, especially single mother homes, tend to be more promiscuous. They have the so-called daddy issues, and they're looking for that stable and, again, authoritative father figure. And so generally they are the women that are happier to go with older men. They are generally more promiscuous because they're looking for that validation from men that they didn't get at home. They are usually, therefore, the single mothers of the future. They pick bad men, those bad men impregnate them, and because of the welfare system that exists in place, those men are able to abandon them with no ramifications whatsoever. And the woman gives birth to that child if she doesn't abort it, and the state pays her to keep that child. The state pays her to not work and to raise that child herself. That child grows up in a fatherless home, potentially seeing numerous boyfriends and others go in and out throughout their entire life. And if they're a young girl, what do they learn? They learn that that's an acceptable way to live. They learn that that's fine. That is simply the way that life is. You have a continual revolving door of boyfriends passing through. And they never learn what a stable family looks like. They never learn what a good father looks like. They never understand how to develop that themselves because they've never seen any example of it. And where in the past you may have had that offset with the church, where there is the constant, emblematic, and absolute highest father figure in existence available. Without that, again, the point of reference disappears. In addition, they don't build the community. The community around church is a lot of people who believe, think, and act in similar ways. People who have similar morals, principles. People who have a set of beliefs that they hold dear and that they will help others to understand. And they will bring those people into the fold with them. And no church is going to turn you away because you're a single mother. But they are going to try to give your child a sense of what a father does. Because the Father, God, is that ultimate patriarch. He is the ultimate highest good. He is the representation of a perfect father. Someone who guides you, expects you to believe what he tells you to believe, expects you to follow his orders and his commandments, expects you to live your life in a certain way, and holds you to account when you don't. Those are 5 things that mothers especially struggle with. They're not biologically and psychologically designed for it. One of the best explanations I've heard around this is that a father is ruthlessly dedicated to the child's future, and the mother is ruthlessly dedicated to the child's needs in the moment. And you need both of those. You need the mother to care for the child now. You need the mother to be looking after what the child needs at this moment in time, when it needs to be fed, when it needs to be comforted, when it needs to be clothed, when it needs to be looked after. All of those things are necessary. You also need the father saying, this is the future that I expect for you. This is the future that I want you to have. And the father dedicates himself to that. And so the father is often not as good at focusing on the needs in the moment, but he is far better at focusing on where the future is. Whereas the mother is usually not very good at focusing on the future of the child, but much better at focusing on what the needs of the child are in that moment. And so when you remove the father from that equation and the child grows up with just the mother, what you end up with is a situation where the child's needs in the moment are being constantly reinforced and fed into. And then what do you get? You get an adult who doesn't understand that what you want right now and what you feel and how your feelings tell you want doesn't matter. Because the real world doesn't care about that. Because out in the real world, there are billions of people who don't care about your child at all. They don't care about your happiness. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about what you want in that moment. They care about their things and what they want and the future they're trying to build and the things they're trying to do. And so when you become an adult out of a household where you have been continually indulged in your needs and desires in the moment, is you become an adult that can't deal with real life. You're an adult that can't plan ahead. You're an adult that thinks that you will not get in trouble if you try to run over a federal agent in your car. You're an adult that thinks it's completely acceptable to go out in the street and shout and scream and throw things at federal agents because you don't like what they're doing because of how it makes you feel. You're an adult that thinks that the most compassionate thing you can do is to take a confused child and inject them with hormones and submit them to surgeries that continually and constantly change their bodies in a way that can never be reversed. Because you think that's the most compassionate thing you can do right now, because that's how they feel right now. You're not worried about their future. You're not thinking about that because you have not been raised with the understanding that the future matters. The loss of fathers has struck a major blow to the cohesion of our society. Make no mistake, you would not have the situations we have today if society was more patriarchal. You have the feminists and the screaming, insufferable bitches, you've all heard them, whining about how women are oppressed. Whereas in Western civilization, women are the least oppressed that they are anywhere in the world. In fact, there's a very strong argument to say that in Western societies, women are in fact the dominant gender in many ways. Almost all of our institutions, our schooling systems, our political systems are skewed towards feminine ideals. The idea of socialism, communism, all of those things, they hold their roots in feminine thinking. They hold their roots in toxic femininity. They hold their roots in the desire to see to the needs of everybody now without any consideration for the future and what those outcomes actually look like if you do that. Look at communism. Look at what it's done. On paper, it sounds wonderful. Everybody gets everything they want. Everyone is given a share of everything that is produced, and everyone will be happy. It doesn't work like that. And the only way to make it work is through force. And all you have to do is look at the history of every country that's ever used and implemented communism and the number of deaths that occur. You also can't have free speech in communism because, again, refer it back to a single mother home. If you are the person that is speaking out against that pure, fair system, then you need to be stopped from speaking. You notice how the majority of the anti-free speech advocates and evangelists are screaming insufferable women. There's very few men doing it, and the men that are doing it are, these castrated, feminized little bitch men like Gavin Newsom and the others of his ilk who are the most creepy and the most insidious of men. They are the ones that are pretending to care about women's rights so they can sleep with more of them. They are the ones that are acting the way they think women want them to act so they can get more of them. And it's noticeable. You only have to look at them. Look at every single one of the major societal figures who push for that. And if you can point to one of them that exemplifies what a real man is like, then I will tip my hat to you and say you're right there. But I don't think you can, because the only ones that would come close are some of the Hollywood actors, people like Dwayne Johnson and the guy who plays Reacher. Do they really believe that stuff, or is that just useful for their careers to spout that nonsense? I don't think either of them really believe most of that. They may have been brainwashed into thinking it in some way, shape, or form, but not really. You can relate the two things. The loss of God in society, the degradation of religion, the attack, the continual attacks you see on Christianity especially. Look at it. Look at all the way through Hollywood. So many Hollywood movies, so many series and TV programs and so on continually attack the Christian, conservative, traditional lifestyle. And you can see this you can see how that is anti what people believe, really, when you look at things like the most of the stuff that Taylor Sheridan produces. Most of the stuff that Taylor Sheridan produces goes against that idea. Most of it goes the other way, and it's very much about strong men who have a set of beliefs and morals and ethics and values and don't compromise to them. Yeah, he's also bad in terms of most of the women that he writes are horribly insufferable women. They're deeply unlikable female characters, most of the female characters he produces. But that's to try to get the women to watch the programs, I believe. But the men that he writes are traditional men. And they push back very much against the wokeness and against the stupidity of so much of the leftist positions. And how popular are his programs? How popular is the stuff that he makes? It's the most popular stuff on TV. They are the ones that get the most views. They're the stuff that everybody watches. They're the series that take over because everyone is tired of having a woke lecture rammed down their throats by the feminists who decided to rewrite Lord of the Rings and take a steaming dump on it. Why is that series so unsuccessful? It's not even really difficult to think about. It's not even really difficult to understand when you really consider it. The lack of God as the father directly translates down into the lack of fathers in the home. All of that comes from the same agenda, which is the leftist agenda, which is the anti-family, anti-religion, anti-masculine. All of that is rooted in evil. There is no other way to describe it. Now, that's not to say that that a lot of the people who are the followers of this and the believers of this and the people who evangelize it and so on are necessarily evil, but they are acting as the agents of evil, because evil wants to deconstruct what God did. It wants to destroy the civilization that has been created. The civilization of the West was built on Christian principles. They often call it the Judeo-Christian principles. Now, the Judeo element is there, but I think that it's minor. If you look at the structure of the West and how it became the power that it became it through Christianity. Not to say that there were no Jews that were involved, that there was no input, no impact made by any Jewish members of those societies, and I am certainly not someone that is anti-Semitic, but if you look at the structures of Western civilization and where it got to, it got there through Christianity. And in fact, some of the things that some of the large Jewish influences did have not been positive to Western society. Evil wishes to tear that down because it is the best thing that exists on the planet. All cultures are not equal. The Western canon, the civilization that in real terms began in England in the 1400s-ish, is where it really started to take root, that eventually would spread across the entire world. European powers took civilization to most of the world. The systems that exist today, such as English common law and the banking system, which I won't try to defend, and it is largely a lot of Jewish influence in there, but those systems that created the civilization of the West, which were the sovereignty of the individual, freedom of speech and expression, property rights, all of these things created the best civilization that has ever existed on this planet, the most advanced, the longest living, the richest, the wealthiest people that have ever lived on the planet were created by that. And so that civilization, which you can fairly clearly attribute to following the patriarchal system laid down in the Bible, brought about Western civilization. And so why is that the civilization that's under attack? You don't hear people attacking the Chinese civilization, the Muslim civilization, the Hindu civilization, the Central Asian civilizations, the African civilizations. You don't get people attacking any of those. You get people attacking Western civilization, the one civilization that has done more to help more people than any other. That is the system that is under attack. Fatherlessness is a symptom. The cause is deeper and darker and inherently evil, even if those who push it are themselves not necessarily evil. The fact remains that it is a system of evil, and there is nothing more to it than that. If we allow ourselves to become a fatherless nation, and a fatherless civilization, we will fall. And we will fall because no civilization has ever survived as a matriarchy. it doesn't happen. Because it's not able to happen. We must stand against it. We must support the traditional family. We must support men becoming fathers and becoming fathers earlier. We must support women becoming mothers and wives, and we must support them doing it earlier. We must remove the idea that the route to happiness is, for women, is career. It is not. The route to happiness for women is family and children. The route to happiness for men is responsibility. Shouldering the responsibility of building, growing, and providing for and protecting a family. All of these things matter more than it is possible to put into words, and more than I have the eloquence to deliver in this podcast. I hope that what I'm getting across here is not doom and gloom. I hope that what I'm getting across here is that there is hope, because we know what the problem is and we know how to solve it. The solution is simple. Return to traditional Christian values. Move away from leftist, progressive, deeply feminist ideas and ideals. Move away from them and re-establish the covenant that was laid down by Jesus Christ and the disciples and others that wrote the Bible. Return to those things and establish a system that rewards it. And what you'll end up with is a far better functioning civil society. Because a society run by men will not allow mass illegal migration from people who do not believe in our culture, who do not believe in our values and our morals and our principles, people who don't care about the rights of women, people for whom rape is an everyday act, people for whom beating and raping young women and children is permissible, people that hate everything that your entire culture stands for. No society governed by strong men will allow that to happen. No society governed by strong men will allow what has just happened in the UK, that the government now pays out more money into social welfare systems than it raises in taxes. The moment you get to that point, you are no longer a functioning economy. You are a communist dictatorship in the making. No society run by strong men will allow these things to happen. Societies run by sad, twisted, spiteful, insufferable women will make all of these things happen, because it tears apart the society that they so despise, with no real plan as to what happens after that, because it's all about feelings. It's not based on logic, reason, the future, none of it. We must return to fathers. We must return to the Father. And we must do it to secure the future of our civilization, because we do not have a lot of time left to turn the tide. The tide is beginning to turn, but the forces that are arrayed against us will push all the harder to prevent that from happening. But the tide is starting to turn back. We must go with it. We must push to make it happen. So, If you wish for your daughters to have a father, if you wish for your granddaughters and grandchildren to have a father, if you wish for your children to have happy marriages, happy lives, then you must lean into this. You must focus on this, because the future of the world without fathers is short, brutal, and bloody. Thank you for joining me for this special episode of Map to the Future. We're going to do some more like this. This one's felt good, and I think we're touching on some really interesting projects. We have more interviews coming up, we have more monologues coming up, and we have a few snapshots in the works as well. So we will be very happy to host you. Please do follow us and subscribe to the channel. And we've just acquired Rumble Wallet as well. So please feel free to tip the account. Every little helps us build what we're doing here. Thank you.